Wilf, I think your guess is as good as mine, but they are all exceptionally vulnerable to one degree or another. I think for Apple, the antitrust issues are not strategic to their business, and so from my perspective, it's least relevant to them. I think Amazon is the one where there is an opportunity for them to negotiate a reasonable settlement fairly straightforwardly. For Google and Facebook, I think they are really poorly positioned, and the real question is how hard will the government press on the opportunities it has. And just for example, I've been involved with a group of professors at Yale University and MIT on applying the current standard of antitrust, what is known as the Chicago School, to internet platforms. Historically, the perception was you couldn't do it because the services were free, but in economic terms, that isn't true. It's actually a barter of services for personal data. And what these professors have shown is that if you use data as the currency, which would be the correct thing in that model, that there's actually been huge price inflation. The consumers are getting a terrible deal. And as a consequence, both Google and Facebook should be extremely vulnerable to antitrust across a wide range of their business activities.
I guess my question, Roger, is vulnerable to what? I mean, yes, antitrust is a dirty word for Wall Street, and the gut reaction is to sell, but European regulators have been looking into antitrust cases on these names, and they've been charging them with fines, and it's not that big of a deal. Are we talking about the potential for an actual breakup?
No, Sarah, I think we want to step back and remember that antitrust as applied to the technology industry has been uniformly a fantastic outcome for investors. Now, keep in mind, there always is a negative short-term impact on the target, but historically, going back to 1956 with AT&T and the consent decree, through IBM, the subsequent antitrust cases against AT&T and Microsoft, in each case, antitrust has created the next big thing, the massive new industry opportunities. And at the same time, the target company has always gone to new highs. So to me, the reason you're seeing this reaction right now is the market's been like Pollyanna. It's just always assumed that none of this stuff mattered. And indeed, it does matter. And it matters because the business practice of these guys is blocking innovation, but it's also having harms on democracy, privacy, and public health. And so there are a lot of grounds for cases here for regulation. And I think it remains to be seen how hard the government will press. But if it does choose to press hard, I think these guys are going to have a very hard time escaping really serious changes to their business model, to the areas in which they're allowed to compete, and potentially in the long run, they may even be broken up.
Guy, are you surprised by how much the share prices have sold off today?
Well, given these headlines, I'm not surprised. But then you look at it in the aggregate. I mean, Alphabet was a $1,300 stock in April. It's down 28% in basically a few weeks. That's an enormous move for a company with $160 per share worth of cash and a company whose valuation is reasonable. Market is trying to tell you something, not only in Alphabet, but I believe in Facebook, Apple, and Amazon as well. We just have to pay attention. The question is, and Roger can answer this, are tech stocks ahead of the S&P 500, or does the S&P 500 have to catch up to tech? My answer would be the latter, but I'd be interested to hear what Roger has to say.
You know, Guy, I'm not sure I don't have the crystal ball. What I do know is that these companies have operated without any regulatory constraints at all, really from their inception. And there are going to be constraints going forward. That is clearly going to affect their business models to one degree or another. I don't think you should assume a worst case situation here. In my mind, the politics right now are very much in favor of regulation. But I do think that those doing the regulation are under a lot of pressure to come to a solution quickly, and that will tend not to produce the kind of giant impact that the AT&T breakup or the IBM case had in their day. But we'll see. I mean, the evidence is clearly there for dramatic action, but whether the government will have the stomach for that or not remains to be seen.